well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Army of the Dead? Stick around and find out. In your head, zombie, 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 eh, eh. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead on Netflix as of just today. The synopsis on IMDb reads, following a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas, a group of mercenaries take the ultimate gamble, venturing into the quarantine zone to pull off the greatest heist ever attempted. The promotional materials for this were really interesting because they said two things about this movie. Well, first, it's Zack Snyder's return to the zombie genre. He did Dawn of the Dead back in 2004. So what is that, 17 years since the last time he made a zombie movie. And so to come back to it now, that caught my attention. Also, it's a heist movie, and so it's not just relying on the zombie premise. And then even from the trailers, you could tell, oh, they're doing something with zombies here. They're making them different. They're making some of them pseudo-intelligent and stuff. And so, yeah, that's always kind of an interesting thing to see in a strong genre movie like this. It can work, potentially, but I think a lot of times, as was the case, unfortunately, for me in this one, it just kind of busies up the concept without really doing something that connects with me. Let me talk about the story, the script, the pacing, the tone of this thing. It's close to 2.5 hours long, and the opening scenes give time and weight that I really appreciated to family drama. Dave Bautista is kind of like the center of the ensemble cast, and he is estranged from his adult daughter. And this movie, in significant part, is about him trying to repair that relationship. And so the time they invest in that part of the story was really appreciated by me. And I was really feeling some things in those opening scenes where they were setting the stage and establishing the history of those two characters. And the opening scenes also have some of that Zack Snyder visual style, a little bit of slow motion, and mostly it's about shot composition, but I mean, certainly that often involves slow motion. We're talking about Zack Snyder. But after about 30 minutes, it largely felt like a pretty standard movie to me. The script felt pretty, I don't want to say B-movie quite, because I think the last movie I kind of said this feels like a B-movie script was much harsher, much more in that direction of like, oh my gosh, this is really hard to listen to. It's not that the dialogue was constantly painful to listen to, it's just the basic plot, the basic story, the beats, the moments became predictable. Who lives, who dies, I could see coming. Even punchlines started becoming predictable. And so, yeah, it just felt very, very standard after about the first 30 to 40 minutes with no clear explanation. Now, in one of the opening scenes, you can say, okay, there's probably something going on with the military that brought this about, but that's the closest they get. So there's no clear explanation, but some zombies can now think and even have a nonverbal society is honestly what it is. They're not able to speak, but they are able to communicate in grunts, in gestures, and things like that. There's a zombie tiger, a zombie horse, and when one of the characters sees the zombie tiger for the first time, and the horse might be a spoiler, it's not a big deal. The zombie's in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away there, really. But when one of the characters sees the zombie tiger for the first time, he says, well, that crosses a line. And in my mind, I'm like, is that a little meta moment? Are they trying to acknowledge that we are kind of going into some bizarre territory here? Because sometimes when scripts will do that, that can help the audience accept the weirdness of what they're doing, because the audience then knows, okay, they know this is ridiculous, so let's give them a chance to do something interesting with this, So I'm wondering if on a meta level that kind of line is written in a moment like this to help the audience go along with them and see what they're willing, what they're interested in doing with this. For me, they didn't do anything all that interesting with the zombie tiger. It was just a zombie tiger. So it felt like this movie was jumping the shark, not crossing a line, both in terms of the zombie tiger, zombie horse stuff, and then also just in the nonverbal intelligent zombie society that emerges in this story, and that is kind of a major part of, well, it is the major part of what's the heroes are up against. I would prefer, I mean, I do like revitalizations and kind of changing up of the formula for things like this, especially zombie horror. It's been around for so long, and ever since The Walking Dead premiered years ago, it's really been kicked into high gear. There's been more and more zombie stories. They're just a dime a dozen, and not just B-movie zombie type stuff. Of course, that certainly has increased, but there's there's movies and things like that are really trying to, that have a decent budget, that are trying to, do something with the zombie genre. I prefer something like 28 Days Later, where the concept of the zombies changes in some way, but the strength of the zombie as a concept is not lost. In 28 Days Later, technically, the zombies are still living humans. They're just gone so berserk that they are totally unaware of pain. They don't feel pain anymore, and they are just willing to put their bodies through anything and just be destroyed in the process of trying to eat people, and that is really, that's unsettling. That's in some ways even worse than like normal zombies. It's really, really unsettling, because this person is still alive, and yet they are just willingly destroying their own body because of the crazed state that they're in. So and the strength of the zombie is that they are unintelligent. They are this force that cannot be reasoned with, and yet they are also kind of people. And so there's that conflict that you see a lot in zombie movies, where like someone is forced to kill their loved one because they have become a zombie or whatever. And so I think that there's some psychological things that play to the strengths of zombies for me that were lost in this one. Another thing that you could lean into would be what The Walking Dead did, which they're like, okay, let's take the zombie premise and let's really try to tell dramatic, character-driven human stories. Now, you could say that series eventually lost its way, but those early seasons really leaned into that kind of storytelling in a zombie setting in a way that had, to my knowledge, never been done before. And so I'm open to things being done to change up the formula and try to do something new and interesting, but this didn't feel like that. It felt like very standard zombie. We're just going to get crazier with things, I also felt like the runtime was too long for what it is. Like I said, close to 2.5 hours. I did appreciate the early scenes that established characters and dramatic weight, but there were a few quote-unquote suspense sequences that could have been trimmed down because they weren't suspenseful to me. I was like, this person's going to die, this thing is going to go south, let's just jump to that and save those prolonged suspense sequences for something that's going to be more convincing to me and make me feel suspense, or that is going to deal with characters that I care about more. So briefly, as far as the cast and performances, Dave Bautista, who's known mostly these days for his character in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, this is some of the most dramatic work I've seen from him in the opening scenes. They really took him to some places, as an actor that I wouldn't have thought. Him coming from, I think it's the world of wrestling or MMA or something. I don't know. Whatever world he comes from, he didn't come from acting. I'm almost positive, actually, but I'm not 100% sure now that I think about it. Anyway, he's not someone that I've ever thought of as being like an actor, and I still wouldn't say that I do, but whatever they did on set, whatever his process was, he was brought to a really tender, emotional place in an opening scene that I really appreciated, and it worked. It connected with me. But his performance and all the others felt really standard to me. Again, after that first 30 minutes, it's almost like that first 30 minutes, there's a little bit of a different filmmaking thing going on than what happened after that. I also felt that other performances that had some more groundedness and realism in the first 30 to 45 minutes lost that and started becoming more standard and kind of actory type choices being made while shooting deeper into the movie. There were a couple interesting character actor performances in the ensemble, so I should mention that, but not really enough to hang the movie on. Let's see here. As far as the stunts and visuals go, Yeah, I think there's a good amount of stunts and action and stuff like that. I'm just when I'm not invested in a story and I'm not invested in the drama, then like the no amount of explosions and stunt work and CGI are going to help me feel what the stunts are and the visuals are meant to make me feel. I would say, as far as the quality of the effects, they're not quite blockbuster standard, with the CGI tiger being a main example, and also some CGI smoke and CGI fire effects in a few other cases that I was like, yeah, that's CG there. The Zack Snyder visual style, as I mentioned, is present early on, but it's really not a visual feast throughout like most of his other films. It really did look very standard to me after the first 30 to 45 minutes, and increasingly, I think, as the film ran along. So as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, starting with Night of the Living Dead, kind of the granddaddy of zombie movies, many zombie movies, including that one, use the premise to make social commentary. There are in this movie one or two brief beats that I think betray the political leanings, the liberal political leanings of the writers, but I mean, I couldn't tell if there was a bigger or broader theme that they were intending to present outside of those very isolated brief moments. I think they could have. Several times I saw real openings for thematic commentary to be made, and I wish that would have been the case. That would have, if you're not going to engage with me emotionally, then philosophically or intellectually is another area that I would like to be engaged in movies like this. But they just didn't seem interested in taking advantage of the opportunities that I saw that they could have. All right, now I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, yeah, skip this one. Man, you finally watched a Zack Snyder movie that disappointed you. It's a pretty standard story / script with more budget and style thrown at it. It's not really more than that for you. It's not worth the time investment. Even if it was trimmed down, it wouldn't be worth the time investment. So yeah, unfortunately, just skip this one. It's rated R for strong, bloody violence, gore and language throughout, some sexual content, and brief nudity / graphic nudity. And that's at the very beginning in kind of one of those Snyder-esque montage slow motion sequences where we see the world falling apart. It takes place in Vegas, and so we see strippers who have been turned into zombies that are topless, that are killing, I guess, their manager of the casino or something. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. So yeah, it's not extremely prolonged. I would say it's a little bit more than brief, but if you want to dodge that, just when that montage starts, just start viewing in your peripheral vision. And I don't remember content beyond that point that would fall into that category. And anyway, those are my thoughts on Army of the Dead. I would love to get yours and your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. For more information about the benefits, you can go over to patreon.com/Spirit Blade Productions. Then, of course, I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.